So now what we have is all of these. They're all done. Every single one of them, finally. Now, just remember a few things. I'm just going to take out the little pieces of paper towel I've just put down in the gaps down here to stop things from falling down into the sump. By the way, if anything does fall down into the sump through these holes here, it's actually not an issue because, well, except for the fact you've lost your part, but it falls into the sump. If one of those little keepers fell down in there, it would fall into the sump and basically sit in the bottom there for the rest of the life of the engine. But there's a strainer on the pump, on the return of the pump, and there's also a filter. So really, anything that falls down the bottom of the engine there will just basically sit at the bottom of the sump and not be an issue. So that's my paper towel out. We'll just take out this rope here because I've cranked the cylinder away so there's no more pressure on that. And that's correct. And we can do away with all that stuff. And now it's a matter of putting this engine back the way we found it. Now the engine itself, because it's an overheat cam, we just put it back into a certain order. I do need to put some oil on things as I put them back together again. We'll put the far crank, the far camshaft in place first because that's the one that we have to match up the timing with the front camshaft. So, and there's a couple of dots on that, and I'll point that out in a minute when I've talked about that before, but I'll show you the dots sort of on the bench so it's easier to see. And apart from that, I have to replace these tubes back in. I'll put some Teflon tape on the bottom of those when I put them in because otherwise the oil will leak down into the bottom of the where the spark plug is. And I suspect that's what's happened in the first place, that the oil has seeped down in there, dissolved the boot that's down there. When somebody's tried to pull this thing out, it's actually left the boot behind. Now they've shoved one over the top of it and of course left the bottom of the boot down around the bottom of the spark plug. The thing still worked, but you couldn't get the spark plug out, and I suspect that's one of the issues, that one of the reasons why this car was probably junked in the first place was that there was a lot of maintenance issues that was basically making the car not viable. Because I'm doing the work myself, it is viable and it's a bit of fun, so what the heck. So I'll put this thing back together again, highlighting the different issues as I go. There'll just be a few bits and pieces pretty much. Just before we put this thing back together again, I thought I'd point out these dots a bit more simply on the bench, or at least on the ground. You can see the bolt that I've put in here to lock out the two separate parts of this helical gear here. Now I actually didn't notice it before, but there's actually two dots here. And there's two dots on there, and there's actually another bigger dot around here. So now, on a bit of investigation, I kind of worked it out. Basically, if you put this dot here, you can see that one there lining up there. Hopefully you can see it, and you rotate it around, and the next dot lines up. So that must be it. It can't be anything else. So you see the two dots there. So when you've got the car assembled, or when you're doing the assembly, you put the first camshaft in, and if you look here, you'll see there's a bunch of flats on there, so you can actually move the thing around. So you put this one in first, and move the thing around to the right spot there, and drop the next one in, and away you go. Now there's also another seal that I'll put in at the same time, and I'll point that out when I'm doing it, because I didn't replace it when I did the cam belt last time. So I'll replace that this time because there's a chance it could leak. A few things here. I'm going to put this end cap. There's this last little cap to go on in here, there, and this is the cap here. If I can see this in the light, there's the cap there. Now I've already got the, if you look over here, I've already got the seal in place, so when I put the cap on I don't have to belt the thing in because there's not a lot of room there to give a good hit. But I would like to put some sealant on this face here. There's a little groove across here that actually provides the lubrication for the seal running in here, but I don't want the oil to seep out around here and down the side of the engine. So I've got this little engine seal, gasket seal stuff here. I'm going to put a little thin smear over this top face here just before I put the cap on. Take two. After that little mishap, I didn't put all the bearing caps on, so that I can check this at my leisure without having to put all these ones on first. So now let's do this again. Oh, I have to remove that little screw again. Hang on. Otherwise it won't turn over. Right, so I can see my two dots, they're lined up, and I'll just turn this over another section. We should see the next dot coming around. Dot to dot. And that is correct. So now it's a matter of just tightening up the valve caps, the caps. Now they should be set to a certain torque, but I don't actually have a socket that will go down in there with these things, and I'm not going to take those off. I couldn't be bothered, so I'm going to just tighten these up just with the quarter drive socket set reasonably tight. The engine's old, the bearings are probably worn there, the sizing of the caps is probably not that critical anyway, so I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to do them up rather tight, and I think I'll leave it at that.